I've said many times that the map is upside down and backwards, and that, in the ancient worlds, our maps were depicted differently than what we see now. And when it comes to symbolism, that changes a lot in our unconscious mind and the way that we see certain things or attach ourselves to it, the feeling that it gives us, whether it's a negative connotation or something that makes us feel exhilarated or positive about ourselves, attached to the memory or the feeling and that particular symbolism gives. And the map is one of the biggest symbolisms that we have on the planet, right? So if the map is upside down and backwards, then the way that we look at things when we are looking geologically can't exactly be correct either. Like it can't be, our navigation system is off if our geography has anything to do with it, which it does, unconsciously. We're all attached to the group collective interpretation of geography, north, south, east, and west. Maybe this next clip will help us with our interpretation a little bit better in modern day about the ancient day. Maybe this clip will help. Let me know.
We declared our joint, or had our own situation popping antithesis to that. You understand? Going back to before 1774 and all that. 1774 to 1776 was the problem is because that was when our people started to be absorbed into the what would become the United States, which at the time was just more like a newly illustrated version of the so-called Union, which was a grand compact of um, old British nobles who were now American born and their indentured servants, and then under them, their Slavic slaves. You know what I'm saying? Who really had no rights at all, but were used to do that. And that was underwritten by the class that was in the so called North, which was actually the South back then. So the North today and the South today is actually reversed. The South was actually at the top, the North is at the bottom, like it really is. So, as it was back then, they just used the reoriented geography to get us flipped out so we don't really see how the play went. You understand? So, at the time of, between the time of Charles II or them taking the throne at Inca and then eventually that then becoming the basis for which between then and let's say it was at 1500s up until like the 1600s, even though we had fallen at Granada, this was the period where everything was being reorganized into what would eventually become the Osmanli, Ottoman, Moorish, Turkish global fighting force that basically wound up putting half the planet into prison camps. You know what I'm saying? Unfortunately. But when we think of that, you know, which we'll get into, Brother Amenadiel said Haitians versus ICE in New York. Any thoughts? Yeah. I think it's a great show of unity. I'm just doing the knowledge to the irony and the lack of actual patriotism that we're actually watching in a circumstance like that. Yeah, it's great that they all standing together and they're not fighting, but think about what they're fighting. Think about what's going on. They're fighting to not go back to their own country that when they were here or when they're here, they want to almost put above this place. Like There's nobody prouder on Labor Day, especially in Brooklyn, than somebody from the West Indies, and they should be, because it's a universal, celebration of everybody from our West Indian peoples who have come to live amongst us here, which is great. It's just that when you try to then make it like they're better, that's the whole problem. You see what I'm saying? It's always been that element of classism and nationalism amongst them and the so-called naturally born so-called Americans, you know what I mean, or Moors born in America, on America's soil. It's always this, laziness, and it's just like what you get from the Africans, you know what I mean? It's just they're different because culturally they have something culturally to unite them, which is their own country. So what I'm saying is, if y'all that militant and y'all that organized and y'all that thing where y'all could push ICE back on a mission, then why not all of y'all as patriots go back and liberate y'all country?